Welcome to Girls Guide to Greatness. My name is Rebecca Shipp, and I am your host. This podcast is all about showcasing great people who are doing great things in the world to help encourage you, uplift you, and motivate you to do something great. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Girls Guide to Greatness. This is episode 103, and today we're talking about seeking the sacred, how to reclaim your connection with God and Spirit. I've got a special guest for you today. His name is Adam Tutor. He's a transformational coach, and he helps to create spaces for stillness and silence in order to guide our quest for freedom from anxiety, fear, and the shadows that keep us small. He has pledged his life to help all individuals, especially men, uncover the yearning in their hearts and ignite a fire of unconditional love and service to the world. Adam creates these spaces through one-on-one coaching, online men's groups, immersive wilderness retreats that help individuals seek the sacred and reclaim their faith in themselves, in humanity, and in God. I am so excited to have Adam on the show. Welcome.
Cool. Yeah, that sounded good. I like the way you said all those things.
It's amazing, right? Well, I love that we're going to be talking about this because it's the perfect time to talk about this. It's the beginning of the year. And to be honest, I mean, it's always the perfect time to talk about this. Anytime that you're talking about reconnecting with God and Spirit is a good thing. But how awesome can we do that at the beginning of the year where we can set that solid foundation and really carry it with us from the months to come?
Yeah. And it happens when it needs to happen, you know. It just so happens that we tune into the same vibration at certain times, and so the energy's stronger, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, when it happens, and you have to lean into it and press reset and make that decision. So may it happen for more people at other times.
Yeah.
Not just, and these arbitrary moments that have been
Right.
decided for us. So.
I love that. I love when you said, if it happens, when it happens or whatever, it's like, there's no need to force this. It's, when you find it, when it does show up, lean into it. That's a beautiful thing. So I like to tell people that even though my podcast is called Girls Guide to Greatness, it's not just all about women. I mean, my goal is to really empower women and to really show them that they're capable of great things. And what I love doing is just having great people on the show, men and women, doing great things in the world. I mean, how awesome is that we can share each other's wisdom, each other's energy, our thoughts, ideals, like all these amazing things, our grand vision. I just love it. It just fires me up.
And it's critical. We have to share. We have to come from the perspective of the woman and the man, and we have to step in those spaces together, because the work is being done in healing circles with women and healing circles with men, and I don't see it happening enough integrated in a really conscious way. My name is Mentor for the Masculine, but that doesn't mean that I just work with men, right?
Right.
Masculine energy is within all of us, so it's the same. So I resonate with that, and I'm grateful to be a part of that integration that you're fostering.
That's awesome. Well, Adam, can you tell us how you got started? Like, what made you want to become a transformational coach, and how did you get started? Is that a good story?
Sure. Yeah. I don't think I didn't have like this goal of like, I'm going to be a transformational coach. Like, it wasn't like something that I set forth on my New Year's resolutions, for example, right?
Right.
Like that wasn't something that I put out there in the universe. It was more of a natural process of becoming a man for me. I found men's work about 5 years ago, men's work being the field of work and experiences and workshops and transformational processes that help men uncover their deepest truth, their mission in life. Some of this can be trauma work, so shadow work. Some of this can be archetypal work. Some of it can be, wilderness based, reclaiming a sense of tribe and community, connection to God and Spirit, whatever that may look like, and coming into community with men for healing. And so I began that myself about 5 years ago, and I was so deeply moved because I didn't think I had anything to deal with. I thought I was good, and I stepped into the circle with the men, and I was like, oh, like I'm terrified, like to be in a group of men, intimidated. I don't know how to express myself around men. And I realized where that came from. And so I came through it, and these men held me that I've never met, and they cried for me.
Oh,
As they
wow.
embraced me, and like good, strong men,
That's
not just men
amazing.
who are like very emotional or whatever, but like strong men who are like
Right.
kings and warriors, right? And like,
Mm-hmm.
and so I was like, if this is something that's out there, like I want to be a part of it, And so I did plant that seed, many years ago, and so over time, I just kept doing the work on myself and noticing the transformation, through a lot of it was around romantic relationships for me. I was dependent on women for affirmation and validation because I didn't have proper male friendships and bonding.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that comes from father wounds, and a lot of that comes from just distrust of men in general over my life, and seeing the way that men behaved, and like, I don't want that, and there's this other side. So I had to do a lot of practice on my own to get to a place of like, hey, I'm actually good at this facilitation thing. When we would be in circle together, we would help each other facilitate and process things. And I was like, I'm seems like I'm a good listener. It seems like men respond. It seems like they're able to get somewhere, and we like to give men victories is kind of what we call it, right? Like, I want you to walk away with a victory. The idea is not that you like beat yourself up or like, go so deep that you get really sad and torn up. Like, it's a part of it, but that you walk away like you've got some gauze for the wound and you know how to heal it, right? And so anyways, like once I figured out that I had that gift, some people reached out to me and said, I see you got this. Do you want to join this men's group? We're going to go deep over the next 6 months, and we're going to, help men transform into coaches. And I was like, cool. Like, if I'm going to, it seems like the right time. Like, I was at this juncture of like, I need to make some decisions if I'm really going to deal with these shadows in my life. And so I jumped in, and I said, by the end of this, I got to become a coach. I need to be ready to do something with men if I'm going to make this big investment. And so that's when our mutual friend, Angel Santiago, and I connected more deeply as well. He was going through a similar transformation, and he and I got to explore a lot of those things, through wilderness adventures and just kind of doing things with our hands and bushcraft knives and like making staffs together and like doing these things that men would have done back in the day, right? And through that process, I found this book called King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. And it's a fantastic book that's kind of like one of the blueprints for archetypal work being that which we have these energies available to us as men that have been passed down from time immemorial, that we've seen portrayed in movies and kind of like sensationalized, but these were real people or based upon real people and attributes that we have within us, that we've lost and we've forgotten.
Almost like you guys were thinking of like, it seems, and correct me if I'm wrong, almost like you decided that you're going to redefine that definition of what society thinks a man should be and how he should act. And how does that look? How does that definition look, I guess?
Yeah, redefining it by living it, redefining it by being that example. And that's kind of what I found is, I can speak a lot of, flowery words, and that's what was my crutch for many years and all these things, but like living it and acting upon it and showing the results and manifesting those things, like that to me is an aspect, a hallmark of any good person. But I think especially for men who may, want to puff up their chest or may want to act like they're carrying certain things and appear strong. Can you really do the work to be that? And also at the same time, be willing to melt and be vulnerable and be willing to like be present for the full experience of chaos and drama and emotion that's a part of the feminine side of the world, right? The creative side of the world that you can't control, that you have to just be with, and you have to be rooted and grounded.
Oh, that's
And
beautiful.
how do you be in both places?
Yeah.
Because a lot of men either go, what's happened to men is they've either gone so far into the side of like, oh, I got to buff up and I got to be strong physically and all these kind of things and appear this way and make the money. And, you know, from a material standpoint, I'll look successful and I'll feel good about things, but then they have no emotional capacity. And on the opposite side, oh, I see all these men who are toxic, quote unquote, which is something we could talk about in a whole other podcast, but like, you know, and I don't want to be that man. I want to be a good stand-up man. I want to be a conscious and emotionally intelligent. But then they're so soft that they can't actually hold space in relationship with women or with people in general when things, you know, hit the fan.
Right.
They don't have the capacity to withstand that because they haven't really weathered themselves in a way, and myself included. Like, this is my story, right? You know, and so I'm at a place now where I'm embracing that now, and I'm feeling stronger and I'm feeling more grounded, but it's still challenging.
I love this because this is even though your story is from the male perspective, like I'm a single woman and I plan on getting married one day, and I want to grow and evolve in that relationship. And you know, hearing what you're saying is just that's what sparks in my head. You know, that I would want a man who would be open to some of the things you're talking about. And so if the women that are listening to this show, even if you like, if you're married, I think that, hey, can you maybe maybe they could use, their husbands could use, you know, your classes, or maybe they could use your materials, right? I think that's a
100%.
great way. Yeah. So, I mean, because to strengthen your current relationship, or even get excited about the new relationship, I think if you brought something like this into the space at the very beginning, it would be, you know, you're going to be on a path to amazing things happening. I think people wait so late in the game until something happens to then address it, instead of setting yourselves up for success at the beginning. Like, start to think about, okay, how does this relation look? Where are we going? What is it going to look like in the future, possibly? And really communicate, talk about it together. Are you on the same page? You know, are you not on the same page, and why not? Like, you know, and then for the male perspective, obviously, having the man actually look at that, because I know a lot of times women especially will think that men are more closed off, not communicative enough, or not showing their emotions. But you know, if we found a man like you're talking about, who's already going through this transformational process, I think that's a good thing, if that makes any sense.
That makes perfect sense. You know, you mentioned earlier kind of this new year, new you kind of mindset, right? Like, we have to it's a time to take inventory. And in that sense, it's a positive thing. And it's the same thing when you enter into a relationship. Like, you need to consciously take inventory. Like, here's what I'm coming into this with, and I need to know what you're coming into this with.
Right.
Like, here are my pain points and my wounds, and you need to know what those are. Because if they come up, which they will down the line, when things get more serious and we actually realize that we're more vulnerable and we want to commit to this and we want to have a family, whatever it is, right? Like, if you haven't presenced that beforehand because you've pushed it down in order to appear strong, if you are strong, great. If you got your stuff together, great. You know, but like, if you're putting on a mask, like we wear a mask, like, we even did this process with some of the men's work of like, you take off, like, here's the mask that I've worn and here's why I wear it. And you present yourself in kind of this theatrical way.
Yeah.
And because it helps to kind of like really let it go and say, cool, I'm taking this mask off. I want you to know that.
Wow.
And like, I'm taking this mask off, but like, know that sometimes I'll put it on and it won't be conscious. And you need to remind me at that time to take it off. Hey, I see behind that mask, you know, I know who's there.
I see
so
you.
come back out, you know, I see you.
Yeah.
And we have to be able to be in those spaces.
That is amazing. Adam, I have to tell you a little bit. I can really relate to this, because I remember when I first started to to date again. This is after my divorce years ago, and I was ready to go out there, be serious about dating, and try to find a nice gentleman or whatever, nice guy. I was meeting with some love coaches in the San Antonio, Texas area, which I know you're in there right now, since San Antonio. Angel, let's say, it wasn't Angel, it was a friend of ours. Janie Terrazas. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Janie. She's amazing. And she was my love coach, her and her husband at the time. And they had told me right away that I have a very masculine energy. That was a long time ago. I've definitely transformed over time. But at that moment, I had my masculine energy was just really apparent. And it was throwing guys off because the guy would see one thing, but then when they got in front of me, they would feel something different, and that would put them off. And I did not even know this. And so after being aware of it, it took me a while to really understand. But because I was a single mom, I kind of grew up thinking, because I had my daughter at 19, so I was young. It took me a while to really understand life and how I could get better at it. But I had this image in my head saying, oh, I have to be super mom. I've got to do everything on my own. I've got to make things happen. I can't depend on anyone but myself. And over the years, I've kind of developed this really strong appearance. Like, no one can touch me. I'm unstoppable. I can do anything, and I have to, because I'm the only person I can depend on. Well, as soon as I really started learning, like you said before, leaning into it, because I know I was aware of it. It was in my awareness now. I was like, okay, I want to change. I want to get better at this. And I want to be able to let go of some of that masculinity and actually, lean more into the vulnerable side. I didn't want my emotions to show. I didn't want people to see that I was, or to think I was weak, or whatever. I didn't want to ask for help. I don't need help, So it was, a part of my youth where I was ignorant, I guess you could say. And I think we all are in some point, right? And it's up to us to really self-educate and to really learn and grow on our own if we really truly want to see true transformation. So I'm so glad that I started paying more attention to that and being more aware of how I was communicating, how I was showing up, my presence, my energy. And I have to say, I've come a long ways. I hope you can tell I'm definitely more on the feminine side, hopefully but to be honest with you, when you were talking about that there is a kind of a balance, like everybody has the masculinity and everybody has femininity, right? And that some men are prone to be more on a lot of the masculinity and not enough of the femininity. I had this image of the Zen. What is that? The black and white balance symbol. Yes, that's that came up in my head, because I'm like, oh my gosh, because I'm getting really into this whole thing about how nature and the universe is all in balance, and that if nature can be in balance and the universe can be balanced, surely we can. Because I used to have a problem with the word balance, and so I started redefining what that means, and I really honestly believe that that you can have some sort of more balanced nature about yourself, where you can embrace both sides and be okay with that. I hope that all makes sense. I know I went off on a tangent there.
No, you didn't. You didn't. To me, what you're speaking about shows up as harmony, and there's a difference between balance and harmony.
I like that.
Balance is kind of like a physical, material world term where we can put it on a scale, right, and actually see it, that it evens out, right? And harmony is more of an internal process of feeling into a sensation and a vibration that we have to just like lean into and embody ourselves. We've forgotten, and that's all we're doing, right? Like we are in harmony with everything. We're not aware of it. When we're aware of it is when we feel the bliss, and when we can approach these places like samadhi and yoga or whatever it may be, where it's the moments where we feel the shot of like dopamine and serotonin and all the things that fire off in the places of love and connection and being held. Like we are in harmony in those moments, because that's where our truth is, right? And like any other time, we've created walls, barriers, and the barriers come from our trauma, and the barriers come from our, in yogic terms, they call it samskara, and samskara are the impressions that have been left upon you, either by this life or by previous lives that you're still working out, right? That like, why, I don't know why I have trouble around this certain thing. I've never experienced it. Why every time I face up against this, this wall, do I retreat, right? And we have to deal with those things. And so we have to start to overcome that in order to be back in harmony, in order to be integrated. There's a reason why you played more masculine, and that I could speculate that it had something to do with maybe distrust of men. And so you had to hold that space for yourself and your child, at a very young age, right? And so you learned to put aside the feminine for a little bit in order to provide, in order to hold that space, in order to be grounded in whatever it is. And that's important in certain moments for survival and for caring for another being, right? Like you have to play both sides. It's unnatural for a moment, right? Like, and then once you realized, oh, like I'm missing this side of myself that I had to put aside, or I chose to put aside. Right. And now I get to integrate that. And that's, so that's what we're coming back to, right? We're working, that's what all this work is, right? Like, is trying to come back to this original place of harmony that we were in when we were a child, that we were in when we were connected to nature, where we saw, you watch children when they're on the playground or out in nature. Yeah. And they connect to these things far more like deeply than we do in general, or more naturally, right? They don't have to think about it. It just happens. And then things happen and they forget, or they're taught to forget, or they get hurt. And that's where all this stuff, with like the crux of this conversation that you mentioned earlier, like this reclaiming your faith and talking about God and spirit, that's what happens to people in life. Like, it happened for me when I was like 12, 13, 14. I kind of saw the hypocrisy in like the youth groups that I was attending in church, and like I didn't really feel like God was there, or Christ, or like the way that they professed Christ to be. I was like, I don't see that like in a lot of the people, but they seem to be the ones that are getting all the girls and having all the fun, and like everyone likes them the most. I'm like, I don't get this, and it created this block for me around having a relationship with Christ as the man versus Christ as who he is in the church, or God in general, as what I need to surrender my life to, so we have to go back. We have to be willing to go back to those pain points. We have to be willing to go back to the root of things, and say, what was the first time that I felt this story come up? I'm not enough, or that that God is that evil and hurts people, or what, where did I come up with this? And sometimes we have to dig, and we have to go into, and we can't dig when we're in the middle of the grind, Rebecca. It's like when we're in the middle of taking care of all the bills and technology, and we're plugged into our phones and we're looking at things, like we can't go that deep because there's so many distractions, right? So we have to go into these places of stillness and silence. That's what meditation is for. That's why I do the nature work, because like nature does, most of the work for us. Amazing. When you go out there and you literally like feel,
I love it.
Exited the, movement of society, and you feel stillness and silence for like the first time. Wow. And then you feel all those things. Then you can find that root. Then you can find those pain points, and you can be like, oh, I haven't thought about that in 20 years. Like, I didn't know that's what that was. and I have to deal with that. Like, and I can choose not to deal with that. I can see it and be like, oh, that's what it is, and keep on living my life, but it's going to be there, you know?
That's amazing. And I love the fact, Adam, that people can go, they don't have to do this on their own. You know, they have you there to guide them.
You shouldn't,
right?
You shouldn't start out that way, at least.
Yeah.
You can go there eventually, but you need to know how to do it in the community and be guided there. So you know how to feel safe, and you know how to be guided, and you know what you're looking for.
Yes.
And then you can, you know, and then you unlearn it, right? And so then you like say, cool, I have all the tools. And you forget everything that I was taught and just be with presence and with God and with spirit out in this place. Because now I know what to do, and I trust myself to be here, and I've learned.
You know, it's unfortunate. I was just talking to my daughter about this, that it's unfortunate, and maybe I say unfortunate, or maybe it's a blessing. Maybe it's a blessing that we have to go through pain, because pain, from what I've understood from training with Tony Robbins, is the biggest way we learn is through pain. It really moves us to action. It moves us to take a look and say, hey, what's going on here? Why is this happening? What can we do to make this better? And through my studies of, you know, the Bible and things like that, I've learned that pain is there for a reason. It's a tool to teach us. And if we look at it that way, instead of like say trying to avoid it, you can start to embrace it and be like, okay, something beautiful is about to happen. It says in the Bible that God can take something from ashes and create the most beautiful thing from it. You know, I forget where that was. I think it was in Job or something, but I think that it can be a valuable thing to lean into, I've done that personally with my own personal growth. And I was going to talk to you about the nature, connecting with nature. I love the fact that, like you said, it's so simple that when you're out there with nature, it's because when you look at it and you see how it actually operates, it's seamless and it's flowing and it's beautiful. And if you just embrace it as it is, it's like, you know, it can it's just an amazing feeling. And I would get, when I was going, I did like this run challenge, and I was running every day in the morning. And I have to say, it was during those quiet moments, nobody on the street, just the birds, an occasional dog walker, you know, it was in those moments where I felt the most like optimistic, positive, energetic. And it actually had like this, it kind of like sparked, like ideas and creativity and imagination in me. And I'm telling you, it was like through the roof, the things that were coming to me. And I would have like these amazing epiphanies and these amazing thoughts of wisdom. And it was really cool. To me, when you say reconnecting with God and spirit, there's almost, like you said, like for me, when I went on those runs, I was creating the space for that to happen. I was creating the space for that connection to happen. And through nature, I think that's a great way of doing it. That's my own experience anyway.
And I think it's most people's experience, Rebecca, you know, if we're really honest with it, right? Like I've only been doing this work for a short time in a sense, right? And I've only taken, you know, like 12 to 20 men out into the wilderness, you know, but like I haven't had a single man that has been like, meh, you know, like that sucked. I wish I hadn't gone to do that, right? Like,
Yeah.
Oh, nature, you know, nature's not that special, right? Like everyone that's there feels it.
Right.
Some of them are resistant at moments. We've even had conversations. That's kind of part of what inspired me. Like one of the men was like, Adam, when you speak the word God, it messes with me. It's hard for me to hear that. And I want to just bring that in. I wanted to bring that into the circle, right? Of like, and we had a really beautiful conversation around it, you know, and that's what's going to be your experience if you're really present. That's my belief, right? Is that because we come from this place, because this is where we were, and because this is like, you know, Mother Earth is the biggest, most beautiful example we have in our consciousness of like our original mother, right? Like holding us, and we're going to feel that love. We're going to want to return to that. Like we want to return to that. So we're going to feel that. If we don't feel that, my belief is it's because there's something in the way. And we go into that place so we can get that out of the way.
I love that.
And
And
so
actually,
sometimes you have to dig and you have to dig and you have to dig. And
yeah.
that's what the pain points is. So I wanted to speak to that. You mentioned
Yeah, please do. Please do.
The pain stuff, right? It's like, we see this in so many stories that become these fantastic trilogies. And, we think of Lord of the Rings and your Harry Potter, like you think of his little scar that burns, right? It's a remembrance of the pain, right? Of like, he has to deal with something, right? It's going to keep being there. Like Frodo, every time he has the ring and it gets heavier and heavier and heavier until he finally is able to let it go, right? And it's like any good story that comes through in that sense is going to have this hero's journey arc. So this is Joseph Campbell. This is, you can read The Hero with a Thousand Faces. He talks about the hero's journey, and you start out with this place of everything's familiar. There's a call to action. And then you have to like leave your familiar place. And so then you go down into the journey and you have to remove everything that you let go of, everything that you've ever had. And then you face this demon, right? And that's where the pain point is. Like, it can look like an actual battle, which in today's world, we don't really deal with as much, in rare circumstances. It's often going to be an inner shadow of some kind. It's going to be, or it could be a death. It can be a divorce. It can be, like many number of things. It can be, being assaulted, being hurt, whatever it may be. Like, there are things that will test you. And then you get to come out on the other side. And then you have to reintegrate, because you have to pass that, think of any like video game, you have to pass the like, there's a reason why you have to pass the boss level to get to the boss round to get to the next level, is to say like, it's going to get harder in the next level. So we need to make sure you're ready for this, and that's kind of what's happening in life. If we really take the space to become aware of it. And that's what we have to do, is become aware of it. And that's where the spaciousness comes in. That's what you're talking about being on this run. And there's something that makes more sense when there's less people. Yeah. It's like we felt it during the pandemic. Maybe we're feeling it again, but like we've kind of lost that moment, I think, because we've already gotten back into our old routines. But like when it first hit in 2020, and like the whole world was in the same place of stillness, in the same place of like, we're all in our house. And for the first time in a long time, we're quiet.
Right.
And the world is not moving and cars are not flying around on the streets. And like that year I had like 30, 40 like monarch butterfly caterpillars that were crawling around in my garden. And I got to watch all of them turn into butterflies. And I got to go through all these beautiful things, but I also had to like deal with my stuff, and so it's gonna happen. Yeah. If we become aware and we listen enough.
I love that.
If we don't, then we just keep on going through our routine, and we wake up and we check our social media and we go to work and we earn the money, and we maybe go on a vacation every 2 years, and we do this thing to what end?
Until you wake up 10 years later wondering why you're stuck, why you're unfulfilled.
Or you wake up on a hospital bed and you're dying, or you wake up on a hospital bed and you're dying because you got in a car, something happened that couldn't be explained, and you haven't spent that time, realizing you're God, that you are God, like that you and God are connected. Like there's been this really interesting thing that I've been thinking about a lot, which is like, we are the only species that has forgotten that we are one with everything.
Oh, I love that.
Like we are simultaneously the only species that has forgotten that, and that doesn't live that naturally on a day-to-day basis, and the only species that can become aware that we are one with everything. The birds that fly, thousands of miles, and the monarchs, that make their journey from Canada to Mexico and just happen to know this one little jungle to go to, in the whole world, right? They don't know that they're doing this extraordinary thing. They just know that they're one. They just know where to go. the trees just know to connect, the fungi know to go underground and build this beautiful web of like connection and all that with everything. And we are able to be aware of that. We can say, wow, I can see myself in the sky and the trees and the plants and the animals and the birds and the things and that crawl and in the sea. But like to not make use of that faculty, it's lazy.
Yeah,
Bottom line.
I have to say,
and I may sound very privileged saying that, right?
Right.
Like tall white man with a family that loves him, and he's been supported throughout his whole life, and was born in America and all these kind of things. Like I get that it's easy to say that because a lot of people are in survival mode, and like finding that time for prayer, for quiet time, like. You can wake up 10 minutes earlier. Like you can find that strength, to take that 10 minutes in the morning to say your prayers or to say you're grateful for something, and I know not everyone has the luxury to go on men's retreats and to, like invest in those kind of things. And I hope there's a world where that happens and that we can bring that to more people. But,
I was going to say, Adam, that, I love this conversation because as you were talking, I just have because I'm a very visual person. So I like to think about like, how does that look, and when you were talking about how, when you look around and you see yourself in the sky and you see yourself, and all these things, I think it's at that level. I think it's honestly where you're beyond your body. What I've learned in my training, because I love these kinds of things. I love learning to see what I'm capable of as a human being on this planet. Why am I here? I have all these questions and I want answers to, and I've been seeking, answers to throughout, my faith, throughout coaching, throughout all these different things and surrounding myself with amazing people like you. But I think that when you're at that level and you see yourself, you're beyond your body. I believe that that's one reason many people are not able to reconnect and seek the sacred and reconnect with God and spirit because they're so stuck with this right here. This is what we can see. When you start to go beyond that, and meaning really, it's like you said, it starts within. If you want to go beyond, it starts within, right? And so you have to learn to let go. You have to learn to open yourself up. You have to learn to trust, and trust in God, trust in yourself, trust in others is what I like to say. But there's all these things, all these different factors. But I was going to ask you if is there something, because I know you use the video game analogy and metaphor, but I love that because if I'm playing a video game and I'm trying to beat the boss, I know I have the tools that I can do that with. If I use them correctly, I can beat them. And every level I get more tools so I can have, tools, magic gifts, whatever it is, so I can continue to, level up. What kind of tools can you give people right now that they could take with them and start using and beat that first boss on this level where they are? What do you think?
Like what are the gifts that I offer?
Or what you offer, or what you could tell them, like something they could take away right now and say, you know what, I'm going to use that right now. Whether it be waking up 10 minutes early to say your prayer, or going on a nature hike with someone. What do you think?
Well, let's do something. This is going to be kind of unconventional, Rebecca.
Oh, I love it. Let's do it.
You asked me. So this is one thing. So we're gonna pause for a second. We're gonna slow down.
Oh, okay.
And so this is, every time that I gather with someone, the first thing that we do is we slow down. And before the check-in, before the how are you, all of those things. There's spaciousness, there's silence, and there's breath. And you notice in these moments, like the vibration in our bodies, that when we start to slow down, it takes a moment for our body to really find that stillness, because we're always so used to being activated. And so we allow ourselves to sink in breathe in deeply through our belly, really feel the air coming through our belly into our lungs, into our chest, into our heart. There's like 4 breaths that happen in one breath. And like just allowing yourself to feel the energy moving through your body, the air moving through your body. And how often do we consciously breathe deeply? Allow ourselves to completely relax in a conscious way. And from this place, we can do a number of things. We can ask a question to our inner knowing. What is the next step? I like to say, what's next? We can pray for someone that is hurting. It may be us. We can just listen to the breath. We can visualize the light within us. We can just listen to the nature around us and become one with that. So once we create this spaciousness and the stillness, there's infinite possibilities. And if we can gift ourselves with this, even once a day, we wake up before we go to bed. Like if we can start our day and end our day with a sense of conscious opening and closing, it's gonna gradually change every aspect of our life. Because the thoughts that we go to sleep with and the thoughts that we wake up with and the practices that we go to sleep with and wake up with will set a tone for what we choose to go forward. So we slowly come back out of this process.
I love it.
We open our eyes and then we're able to connect and we're able to actually share, okay, here's what I'm feeling in my body. Do like a mind, body, spirit check. My mind is, so like, let's practice. Like, okay, like my mind right now is at ease. My body feels spacious and my spirit feels connected. How is your mind, body, and spirit?
I feel like I'm just like, because as you were bringing me through it, I was just taking those deep breaths. And every time I did, I try to like, okay, be mentally aware of my body and just releasing and sinking more into it and just letting go. So I feel more relaxed.
Beautiful. So this is one major step, right? So allowing yourself that process, and you can do that process in your home. You don't have to go out into the middle of nature to do that.
Right.
If you can do it, because it's going to be even more powerful. And you set yourself, I mean, this is an aspect too, like create a separate altar space for yourself. It doesn't have to be like an actual made altar, which I would recommend finding some space in your home that you can make, where you put something that reminds you of your highest truth. Right?
That's good.
It may be an image of a deity. It may be an image of your mother. It may be a piece of chocolate. It may be whatever, it's like, whatever makes you happy. You find a space for that in your own home. And you can also find that space sought somewhere there. I have my altar spaces in like a million different parks around San Antonio. There's a space that I go to because that feels sacred to me. And I know when I go there that I can like really disconnect and take care of myself. And giving yourself that, like it could be once a week. And you say, every Sunday at sunset, I'm gonna go take a walk in the park and sit down, give yourself 30 minutes. I mean, you know what I mean? In an entire week to do something like that and watch what happens. Take note of what happens. Bring a journal.
Oh, that's good.
Reflect into that space. Share how you feel afterwards. If you're into the social media game, integrate your experiences into social media and share with people. Hey, I just started meditating and I feel awesome. Like if more people knew that people were doing that, like that, the world would become much more calm and peaceful, like guaranteed. you
Yeah.
know, so these are things that you can practice on a personal basis. In terms of what I offer, you know, these are gifts that I offer, right? Like, so I do one-on-one coaching, where we dig deep over the course of 6 months, and it's kind of like an archaeological dig, you know, we go find the bones and we dust them off and we put them out on display so we can see them and we can make sense of them and where they've come from, you know, and like we come back out and we say like, cool, like now I'm more ready for my mission in life or my work or my relationship or to love myself or to love God or whatever it is, right? So the one-on-one work does that most deeply over time. The wilderness journeys, you know, are a chance to reset, you know, so we go out into nature for 4 days. I've started integrating like a day of fasting and a day of silence to that, which was super powerful.
Wow.
And vulnerable, you know, challenging, but super powerful. Allowing that space to reset, allowing yourself to connect with each other in a way that is not about what you do. You know, we don't talk about what we do in the world. We don't talk about, you know, the roles that we play. We talk about like our hearts. We talk about spirit. We talk about connection. We talk about love. We talk about how we can show up more fully in each area of our lives and what's keeping us from doing that, right? What's keeping us from showing up, like various obstacles. And so we do that work. And for those men who are not in my geographic area, like I do online programs. I'm gonna launch another one soon called Accessing the Mature Masculine, which is archetype work, the king, warrior, magician, lover that we mentioned earlier. And it's providing men tools through breath work, through meditation, through daily life. How can I access the king energy in my relationship? How can I show up more as a warrior in my work so I can, you know, reach those goals? How can I be a more conscious lover, you know, and more intimate and more open? How can I tap into the intangible as a magician and listen to spirit and listen to my inner knowing, my intuition? And so we talk about those things and we open that up in a circle online that's really powerful. And then we do culminate it in this like little day retreat out in nature to
wow.
together and stuff. So
I love this.
those are my particular offerings.
Okay, this is great. I think the audience is going to love this. And I have to say, I'm so glad that you went with us into the, you know, just that quick session of just releasing and just being present. When I first talked to you on the phone, as a matter of fact, I'm going to tell the audience. So I was eager to have Adam on the show, and I called him real quick to confirm the time, and I just jumped right into the conversation. But he goes, "Hi, how are you?" And he's like, you know, you're all like, calm, what's going on? You know, are you you know, that sort of thing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm fine. How are you? You know? And so I think for me, this is going to be my homework, you know, just to learn how to get still, how to reset in that moment. It could be a quick 2 seconds, you know, like you said, just a breath, and be like, you know what? Okay, we're here. I see you. I hear you. I acknowledge you. How are you? I think that's beautiful. And one last thing I have to ask you before we head off is you mentioned on the phone India. Can you tell us just a little bit about what's on the horizons for you? Because that sounds super amazing.
Thank you for that reflection, Rebecca. Yeah. On one of these journeys, speaking of the wilderness and silence and spaciousness, I take a yearly trip to Big Bend, which now I started taking men on this journey with me. Big Bend National Park is this beautiful place in West Texas, one of my favorite places in the world. Full expanse, desert, mountains, all the things that you need to like really feel small and to feel quiet. And I never felt kind of the voice of God and felt seeing the stars and all these things in the way. So I felt at that moment, it was my birthday. It literally was like midnight, and I woke up in the middle of the night because it was like 35, 40 degrees or something. And I was like shivering, and I woke up at midnight, because I heard this voice, and the voice said, "You're going to go to India in a year, and you're going to have to leave behind the things that you know." And it was like it was beautiful, like ancient Indian woman that looked like this. I have this poster of Divine Mother, like up in the cosmos, like surrounded by the Vishnu and Brahma and Shiva, and Divine Mother is looking over all of them, and it looked like this kind of ancient woman, right? And I was like, oh, yeah, cool. Let's do that, like, and then that was a year ago. So the entire year became a preparation for getting ready for that and really seeing if that was true. Leaving behind. Tomorrow's my last day leading the nonprofit that I've led for the past, I've been a part of for 6 years, and like it's been a big part of my journey, and like letting that go and allowing that someone else to take the lead. And, I'm moving out of my home in 3 days, and that I've been in for 7 years, and I'm going to seek the sacred. I'm going to live what I'm preaching. I'm going to India. I've always wanted to go. I am a part of the fellowship of Paramahansa Yogananda called Self-Realization Fellowship, which is using meditation for God realization and living that in day-to-day life. And so I'm going to go follow his footsteps and visit the homes that like where he meditated in, and like his ashram near Calcutta, and then travel to Kathmandu and to Kashmir and go trekking in the foothills of the Himalayas, and
oh, that's amazing.
And just be with different teachers and listen. The goal for me is to like, it's gonna be the first time where I don't have any obligations. I don't have any timelines or deadlines. I have no time. I don't have to be back anywhere. I don't have to respond to anything.
That's amazing.
Like I don't have to play a role for once. I can be nameless.
You could just be.
I can just be.
I love it. I love it.
I'm beyond thrilled and blessed to be supported in this, and to like be in this place where God has called me into this journey. And I know that when I come out, I'm going to be very clear on how I'm meant to be of service in the world. And I'm so excited for that.
That's amazing. And it's like, it's great because I can see that once this happens, if you go through all of this and you come out on the other side, it's like, you're already making an impact where you are, but I think that's going to grow even bigger. I love it. So thank you so much for sharing all of your amazing wisdom and passions and gifts with us today. Truly remarkable. And I love having people like you on. I'm telling you what, because it always makes me feel good. And it also always shows me areas that I need to grow in, to take a look at, right? And other areas that I can shine into and really use my gifts to help people as well. So everybody listening and watching, make sure you reach out to Adam if you need help. And especially if you know a man in your life that needs help in these areas where they need to get down and dirty, and they have to, reveal some things, and they got to grow, and they have to triumph. They're looking for a victory. Make sure they reach out to Adam. And of course, always, I'm here for you. And Adam, I was going to say, what's the best place for them to find you?
Cool. Yeah. Thank you for all that. Instagram is great. Mentor for the masculine, all spelled out. My website is adam-tutor.com. You can find out more about the retreats and the one-on-one work there. And if you want to enjoy my music, I'm a musician. I have music for meditation that's out on Spotify, on Bandcamp, on YouTube under my name, Adam Tutor. And it's created as an act of love, a labor of love. For you to use for your highest good and deepening. So I pray that any of those services may be a benefit to you on your journey.
That is beautiful. Thank you so much. I'll have all of your information in the show notes, of course. And you'll have to keep us in the loop. And as you progress with everything, when you're over in India and doing things, I can't wait to follow you online and see all the cool things that you're into. So thank you so much again, Adam, for being on the show.
Rebecca,
Truly a blessing.
this. Yeah, thank you for this incredible opportunity. It feels really good to do this at this time. It feels like a preparation for what's coming next.
Right.
So thanks.
Hey, you're going to be just like that butterfly in your garden.
That's happening. I'm going home.
I absolutely love it. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining us on Girls Guide to Greatness. And remember, go out and do something great.